Warning: this video may contain themes that are too intense for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome back, patients, to Storytorium. Today's session will be 4 true encounters with the paranormal. Get comfy as you can, and listen. 1. So, I saw this about 4 years ago at work, and it creeped me the frick out. I work for a digital surveillance company that runs the quote-unquote eye in the sky for thousands of restaurants, bars, and gas stations across the US. From time to time, we get calls for investigations to look into robberies, theft, etc. So, one day, we get a call from a popular fast food chain located in the heart of Detroit. They say an employee OD'd by the dumpsters, and they need us to get some answers on the situation. First, basically what happened and how long was he there. The next question is where it starts to get weird. See, the dumpster had a brick wall around it. It had 2 entrances, a gate you had to pass when you walked out the back door, and the big gates where the garbage truck has to access the dumpster to empty it out. They claimed those big gates were always open, and the small gate by the back door was locked from the inside. Nobody ever used that smaller gate. The weird thing was, when the body was found, an employee walked out. That gate that was never open was indeed open, and the body was sitting there on full display. So their next question was, who the frick opened that gate? So we download the footage. One night, the employee goes outside, throws out the trash, and you can kinda see him through the locked gate that was never open. It was see-through, but very difficult to see through. The way the camera was angled, you could kinda see over the top also. He injects himself, slumps over, and keels over dead behind the dumpster. He was out there for 2.5 days. No employees ever came to look for him. It's pouring rain both days. For 2 days, employees come and go taking out the trash, never seeing him. Then, on the 3rd day, in the morning sunshine, clear as frickin' day, the gate just slowly opens by itself. Nobody comes, nobody goes. The gate just frickin' opens by itself. And the body is sitting there in the same position it was 2.5 days earlier. I literally felt chills down my spine. To this day, I can't explain it without thinking it was paranormal. Anyway, a couple hours later, an employee walks out with a trash bag, sees the body, freaks out, and calls the police. I didn't write it, but we basically had to write a report on how a gate apparently opened itself. 2. So, as the title suggests, I work security, and I had picked up an overnight shift at a post other than my usual one for some overtime. I can't get into specifics about where I work, and I wish I could post a video, but I need to keep my job, you know? So the other night, I was working this post that was pretty much shut down with roadblocks up to check any and all personnel that tried to enter the facility. Both roads that lead to my gate were blocked off. One less than half a mile just north of me, and another one a little over 2 miles to my southwest. It was around a bend and completely out of my sight. Well, the one just north of me, when people pull up to it late at night, the headlights will be just visible down by me on the cameras. I was sitting there drinking some coffee to try to keep myself awake, and I had hardly seen anybody. My sight was inactive due to what we call a hard down, with only essential personnel being granted entry. A truck had just come pulling up to the guard shack just north of me as I watched on the camera, and as the truck is coming to a stop, I see a reflection in the camera that I thought was just the lights of the truck. But when I opened my eyes a little wider to focus, I saw it freaking move. What it looked like was a complete silhouette of a person. I thought maybe somebody was walking up to my gate in the dark and made me jump out of my seat to look out the front window to confirm a visual. As I'm looking out, I see absolutely nothing. I look back to the monitor, and there it freaking is on screen. The silhouette of a man that looks to be wearing a hazmat suit. I kept looking back and forth from the window to the camera. As I'm doing this in live time, I'm just catching glimpses of what the camera is picking up. I radioed to 2 other guards, asking if they had let any personnel get through their checkpoint, and I get a negative response back asking me what's up. I told them to stand by as I went to review what I just saw on the recordings. To my absolute disbelief, I watched stunned as the truck comes pulling up to the North Guard shack. Its lights shine on some movement. What I could make out was a silhouetted figure of a man wearing a hazmat suit, walking. When the truck comes to a stop, the man also stops, looks toward the truck, does a double take back from me to the truck, and just walks across the road and disappears. I thought I was going freaking crazy, and maybe seeing things because of my lack of sleep. I clipped and saved that portion of the video, and waited till shift change to show the other guards I worked with overnight and the ones coming to relieve us. I never said anything to them about it when it happened that night, or anything to the guards coming on shift. I played the clip for them, and everybody's jaw dropped. They saw exactly what I did without me having to point out anything. This is a regular occurrence where I work. Most of the guards that have been there for a while have seen things and have stories. I just finally got what I've been waiting for. Solid proof for myself. Really wish I could post the clip on here, guys. I'm sorry that I can't. 3. So, to start this off, this is all at the same decommissioned power plant. Now, on this property, there was a cemetery that the company had bought with the property. They were digging up the graves and transporting them out. We had to have 2 security guards at the main gate, and 2 at the cemetery while they were digging up the bodies and bringing them out. They did this at night because of the heavy truck flow traffic on the only road leading out of the main gate during the day. Now, 2 had to be at the gate because we had to check off names and make sure all bodies were accounted for and none were missing. The other 2 guards had to be at the cemetery because of grave robbers who, if the coffins were left unattended, would crack them open and steal everything except the body, and meth heads getting in there to get high. So we had 2 guards there at all times. Our company finally broke down and got us a shotgun that week as well, after one of our guards was shot by a meth head. He did survive, in one of the outlying buildings. Everyone carried some sort of firearm after that. Everyone carried handguns except the lieutenant, who kept an AR on him at the cemetery. Now, this was a pretty normal night, and I was in the shack watching Stargate when the radio started going off, with people from the dig site freaking out. Our response was, what the actual frick is going on? They said someone was going into the facility. So the lieutenant and the guard with him followed and demanded we follow. So I grabbed our 12 gauge and we bolted in. They described it as a tall woman with short hair walking in. Now, this wasn't unusual. There was a neighborhood around and teens would get in to mess around. Gross, I know. But something set everyone in the dig site into a panic. We hooked up the respirators so we could go in, had to have them due to asbestos, and entered taking every step with a grain of salt because none of us wanted to get shot. We were about 4 floors up when we see it, and it's going up the stairs. I was about to confront her when the other main gate guard grabbed my shoulder and pulled me back. Dude, look at her! I didn't think anything about it until I looked back and she was gone, presumably up the stairs. The lieutenant was shaking, and I thought he was going to have a heart attack. Everyone was ghost white. The main gate guard looks at me and says, "Bro, she wasn't moving her legs." It was at this point the lieutenant made us pull out and back to the shack. He called the digging company and told them to get the frick out of here now. We were trying to gather our thoughts when the company got on the radio. "Guys, she's on the roof." We ran out and saw it. There was a woman on the far side of the roof, the side without a roof access area. We all looked at each other and made the decision. I quit. This was one of the most terrifying security jobs I'd ever worked, and I was done. The other 2 guards did the same. We took off our work shirts, threw them in the shack, and left. I found out later from one of the guys that the lieutenant quit after, turning in the camera footage of the incident and his personal body camera footage into corporate the next morning. If I can get back in contact with them and get it, I'll gladly post the footage on here for you. We had a whole host of stuff that happened there over the short time I worked there. but most of it was small, like gates opening on their own, knocks on doors and windows, handprints on cars, a truck being pushed into a ditch, and a whole load of other stuff. I might post more about this place in my experiences at the local mall as security. 4. I thought I'd share some of my experiences from my short time as a night watchman at a very old historic cemetery. I worked the 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. shift. The cemetery generally closed at 6 p.m., so around 5:30 p.m. I would lock the main gate, then would start driving through the cemetery to notify any visitors that we'd be closing soon. I'd instruct them to park in a line in front of the locked main gate, and when my drive-through of the grounds was complete, I would unlock the main gate. Everyone would leave, and I would lock the gate behind them. So one day, I'm in the middle of my final drive-through, and I see an old lady slowly walking the sidewalk alongside a mausoleum. The mausoleum was hundreds of feet long, about 20 feet tall, and had no breaks in it. It was one long stretch. The road ran directly alongside the sidewalk of the mausoleum, so I pulled up behind the lady to tell her we were closing, get out of my car, take my eyes off her for a split second as I'm getting out of the car, and when I shut the door and look up, she's gone. Completely vanished. I didn't think anything paranormal at first. I just thought maybe I lost sight of her. But the sidewalk and road were completely empty. I ran all the way around and checked the back of the mausoleum, but no one was there. Across from the mausoleum was a whole field of graves, and I eagle-eyed the crap out of every row. Not a soul in sight. I finish up my round and sit in my car the rest of the night, in a well-lit area. I saw a fully visible person. I know it. No tricks of light, no hallucination, plain as day. The encounter seemed to break open the proverbial dam, because after this I had numerous unexplainable occurrences. If you guys would like to hear any of those, I'll gladly update the post with another few stories. And narrator's note here, There are several updates here, and they're all very interesting. But because of time constraints, I'm going to skip down to the reason why this person ultimately left their job, which is incredibly creepy. And I'm going to link this story in the description down below. So if you'd like to see these creepy updates, I highly encourage you to click the link and go read them for yourself. Lastly, the experience that led to me quitting. It was a quiet day, so I pulled my car around back the old chapel to take a nap. The chapel was surrounded by 12-foot-high hedges, so I figured it was a good spot to park for an hour and shut my eyes. I fall asleep and wake up to see my car completely surrounded by dead people. So real, so vivid, so much detail. They were pressed up against the glass windshield. They had on the outfits they were buried in, suits, dresses, but all dirty and in different stages of decomposition. No one spoke. No one moved. They all just stared, like I was some zoo exhibit. Then I woke up. I had been asleep, and it was a dream. The thing is, it felt so real. I have never had a dream so real, so vivid before or after. I took it as a message. I called my boss and quit as soon as I left at 4 p.m. I go back to that cemetery from time to time because I have 3 grandparents and an aunt buried there. I never linger too long, though, and always make sure I'm out long before it gets dark. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's session. I would like to extend a special thank you from all of us here at Storytorium to our donors. The links to the original works will be in the description down below, and I highly encourage you to go read them for yourself. If today's stories gave you a chill, why don't you hit that like button? And if you'd like to hear me bringing more spooky, hit that subscribe button. Thank you all again, and we'll see you next time at Storytorium. Bye-bye.